Internet, and welcome to episode number 275 of the Comic Watchers Show. If this were a comic book, it would be triple size with a holographic cover and 30 variants. But 275 for us. We're just getting started. So with us this week, Chad, we've got Richard Pace, artist of many comics that you've read over the years, and now is currently funding an art book on Zoop called Idle Hands. Richard, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so let's dive in a little bit. Before we get to Idle Hands, though, for those who may not be familiar with you, what's your comics journey? What's your comics background? Like, what led you to this field, and what might they know you from?
Well, I think the thing I've been associated with the longest right now is Second Coming with writer Mark Russell. We co-created Second Coming. It's published by Ahoy Comics. I just finished my contribution to the fourth arc, and it's pretty exciting. That should be coming. Pardon me?
As you should be.
Yeah. And so I think that's coming out either end of this year or beginning of next year. I've also done, I think because they turned it into a movie, that's probably more notable than anything else. I co-wrote Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham with Mike Mignola, drawn by the amazing Troy Nixie. And there's a bunch of comics projects I've been associated with over the years. Terror Incorporated, New Warriors, both at Marvel, a whole bunch of weird projects here and there, all the different publishers. I've also done a ton of covers for different publishers. I think last year I did like 10 to 15 for Dynamite. That was fun. That was Johnny Quest and Barbarella were really fun covers to do. I did covers for both those series.
Right on.
Yeah. So
pretty impressive resume. And now you've got an art book happening. So tell us a little bit about Idle Hands.
Well, first off, the title's a play on words. I mean, the phrase comes from idle hands at the devil's playground. So if you're not busy, the devil takes over. So it's like it gives me an excuse to draw a devil for the cover of the book. And it's upwards of, there's going to be covering up to 30 years in terms of like just retrospective. So it's going to be showing a lot of my various work for over the decades from different publishers with more of a focus in the last 10, 15 years. The stuff where I feel I've actually mastered my craft to a certain degree. But I'm also going to be doing some things. I'm going to be showing like my work process for comics pages and covers and paintings, as well as taking more of a hold the reader's hand through different projects, what I was thinking when I did a certain piece, what my technique was, what my approach was, what my experience was working with the different collaborators on a project. And there's going to be a nice little section on my influences. So I'll be talking about like Mike Mignola, Bernie Wrightson, Bill Sienkiewicz, hopefully Frank Frazetta. I'm only doing these if I get permission of the estates or the artists themselves.
Sure.
I want to be showing their work in the book as well, a couple of pieces of example work. That I feel that would be a nice touch. I don't really see artists' collections talking about how much they appreciate the artists that influence them. So getting the chance to talk about reasonably recent, even if they've passed, reasonably recent contemporary artists, as well as the artists who came before, like classic illustrators like Franklin Booth and Joseph Clement Call, or N.C. Wyeth, who influenced me hugely in how I approach my work. That's going to be, I feel, a unique thing to this book.
Right on. I know when we talked last time, which was like 2 years ago, I asked you this question, but I always like to lead with this question. What is your experience with comics as a reader, or your journey and as a creator?
That's you probably stumped me for a moment last time you asked that. I think as a reader, as a kid, my experience, and I've been talking a bit about this more because the Superman movie came out and how much it's steeped in the silver age of comics. As a kid, most of my comics reading was getting a grab bag of comics from Kmart as my family is about to do a summer trip to wherever, Calgary, Fargo, wherever, and reading random assortments of DC and Marvel comics. And almost invariably, there'd be a giant-sized DC 80-page giant, and it would have gold and silver and contemporary comic reprints in it. So you'd have this smorgasbord experience of like what comics were and are. I mean, you would get like a Justice League 80-page giant. You would get an issue of Commandy, like issue 5 or 6 or something, a Sergeant Rock, and maybe a House of Mystery comic, all in one bag. So it's like, what the heck? So that was my earliest experience of comics. Then years later, in the early 80s, I had friends who were really into comics, which turned me on to X-Men. But just picking them up off of the newsstand shelves at my local milk store or convenience store. And that's where I was already predisposed to comics, but the spinner racks weren't that exciting because I didn't really have a context of like what the books were, who was doing what. But I saw Savage Sword of Conan, the old black and white magazine, and Big John Mishima's work was just mind-blowing to me, which turned me on to Conan and fantasy fiction in general, which was a big component to my development as both a reader in and out of comics and comics themselves. And around the same time in a bookstore, I stumbled across The Fantastic Art of Frank Frazetta, the first one that has the Egyptian queen on the cover, or Egyptian princess. I have a print of it in my other room here. And it gave me the template for what I could do as an artist. Because at that point, I was like the kid who could always draw even before I got into comics. And I went, oh, what can I do if I can draw? I enjoy drawing. And basically, the 3-4 page biography of Frank Frazetta in there says he studied under a classically trained artist. That guy passed on, so he had to figure out what to do to pay bills. So he got a job assisting for comics. And then he became Frank Frazetta. Really easy path, right? So I figured, all right, well, I have to do comics. So then I had one of my comics friends take me to my first comic shop, Doug Sulipa's Comic World in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And my mind was blown because I saw in that one trip, comics just weren't superheroes. And Savage Sword of Conan, I saw independent comics. I saw Cerebus for the first time. I saw Love and Rockets for the first time. I saw heavy metal for the first time since I think the first or second issue, which I accidentally bought when I was way too young to get that comic book. It got confiscated very quickly after I had it. Yeah. And it was mind blowing. Yeah, and they did have books on film, magazines about film. It was this whole genre experience that just spoke to me. And from that moment on, my mind was immediately predisposed to genre, comics being a big part of it, and the desire to become a professional artist. So my path was set. Then I went to art school. Along the way, I realized that comics weren't just fun stuff. They were actually literate. And kind of what Alan Moore did in Swamp Thing, and
Sure.
Watchmen and V for Vendetta, and so many other projects, and all these great stories that were just influenced by not other comic books, but other writers from different genres in classic literature. And that developed I guess, to put a snobby way, an advanced palette for what comics could be. And the mid 80s were an amazing time, just a period just as I was going to art school in 88. I mean, you had Dark Knight, you had Alan Moore, like Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and Swamp Thing all running simultaneously. You had Lone Wolf and Cub and reprints around that time. So I was getting to experience what appealed to me in manga. The Appleseed didn't really grab me. It was pretty, very pretty, but it didn't really, that type of science fiction, the cutesy stuff, as sexy as it was, didn't really appeal to me. But Lone Wolf and Cub, oh my God, that was so savage and brutal. So, I mean, from that point on, it was like I was hardwired to want to do gritty, dark, violent comics with hopefully a literary aspiration to them. So hopefully that answers the question.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it did.
Okay, good.
Pat, are you satisfied?
I am satisfied.
Okay, there we go. That's the important metric here.
So tell us a little bit about your early years, and if you could look back and give your younger self some advice, what would you give him?
There's going to be a section in Idle Hands about advice to young artists, and it's going to be essentially me saying the stuff I wish I knew when I started. And one of the key things is as a young artist, you don't know what to focus on. Even when I went to art school, I went to 3 years of illustration at Sheridan College here in Canada. And it's one of the, well, at least at the time, it was one of the premier art schools in Canada. And I learned a tremendous amount. But even then, I felt the priorities of what was important to an artist weren't really, really cemented enough. And it all really comes down to a fundamental understanding of what happens on the page is all that's important. What the reader experiences or the viewer experiences when they look at an image is entirely in the hands of the artist, whether you work photorealistically or incredibly stylized or even graphically. What you put on the page is of the only importance. It doesn't matter what process you get to it. It's the end result is the ultimate goal. And maybe I just overthink, but it was like, I mean, there was years of me just putting obstacles in my own path to doing better work. And it actually took a brief period of time, I think about 7 years, where I left comics and I worked in illustration and film and animation and book illustration to refocus on what was important to me about comics. So I'm going to be going into a lot more in depth about a learning process and how to not trip on your own feet as an artist and storyteller.
So I know when we, what I think it was 2003. When you were crowdfunding Coven on with the Zoop for the first time. Are some of those pictures or some of that artwork going to be in there? And tell us a little bit about that kind of, I don't know if you would say it's a period in your career, but
well, yeah, it's so long ago, 2023. No, actually, I've done so many new witch drawings for this campaign, and there's some pieces, full color pieces that I did for my Patreon. So there's going to be a section about the witches in Idle Hands. Of course, it was like 2 years in development. It had a pretty successful campaign on Zoop. It still moves a lot of audience to really like the work in different social platforms. So there's going to be a section on the witches in this. There's also all the Devil Dame drawings. Just wanted to do something different than witches, so I came up with these Devil Dames. And so there's going to be little sections on like coming up with themes and dealing with things like month-long Inktobers. Although I think I'm not going to use the term Inktober because I believe the guy who created Inktober says he's now taking a proprietary copyright element on Inktober. So I'm going to say monthly challenges, monthly drawing challenges. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about that.
And that's how the Coven started off.
Yeah,
or the Coven Witches started off to begin with, correct?
That's right. It was another October was coming, and I had this thought where it's like there's different levels of engagement with monthly challenges. There's like draw one a day, draw one a week. And I initially thought, well, I'll do one a week. So I drew the one on the day before the first. And I was thinking about it, and I said, well, what type of... I decided I was going to draw witches. I just felt, I'll draw like 4 or 5 witches. That'll be fine. And I said, well, what do I want to do with witches? I like drawing sexy witches. So and then I had this mental flash of Leroy Neiman's Femlins. Now, a lot of people may not know that because it's probably before a lot of people's time. When I was too young to get Playboy and getting it, Leroy Neiman would draw these tiny little women doodles, dark hair, very curvy, elegant little drawings, and they were wearing silk stockings and silk gloves, arm-length silk gloves, and they were so sexy. And I thought, well, I can do a witch that's a bit of an homage to that. So that's where the fishnet gloves came from.
Oh.
And the dark hair, all the witches have dark hair, even though like some of them are not. Some of them are black, some of them are Asian, some of them are white, covering the whole spectrum. Just because they're fun, I don't want to draw the same witch all the time. I came up with a whole plethora of different shapes of witches. And for some reason, I like the idea of a witch's hat where you can't see the witch's eyes. So I did that in the first one. And the next day came by, and I finished the deadline for what I was working on that day. And went, I'll do another witch. I'll post 2 in a row. And then I posted it on the 3rd day and the 4th day. I think on the 4th day, the social media engagement on Instagram went through the roof. So I went from like, a few hundred people liking it to several hundred people liking it to over 1,000 people liking it. And I'm like, well, I better lean into this because, as an artist, freelance artist, you don't know when this is going to take off or when it's going to die. So I figured I'll do it until people lose interest. And at that point, I had an art rep who eventually was revealed to have ripped off all his clients. Yeah. So I think when we hit the first 12, he said, "Oh, you're really popular. We should probably sell them now." I went, "All right, cool." And they went in like, I think a day and a half, all of them went. I was like, "Oh, these are really stupidly popular." And so I kept doing it for the whole month, and they were so popular. Right at the end of October, I decided, well, I got to keep these going somehow, but I can't. I got deadlines on other projects. I can't devote that much time to all of them. So then I picked up the idea of Witchy Wednesdays. So I do a new witch every Wednesday for several weeks. I think it was like months even. I think like 26 weeks total. And eventually, this is the point where Meta was really getting censorious on all their platforms. And even heavily edited drawings were being removed. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stop Witchy Wednesdays because it's too much of a struggle. But I announced in collaboration with Zoop, who had approached me earlier about wanting to work with me. And I really like their model and the fact that they take over and I don't have to do any of the production and delivery. And so I did a lead up to 1 month lead up drawing just little witch head drawings. And then another month of witch drawings, which I edited significantly further for social media. And Coven did really, really well. The page is still up, so you can see the total. I think it's over 24,000. So for an out of nowhere, not a comic book of just nude witch drawings, I think it did pretty good. So the goal is to make crowdfunding at least an annual event for me. In fact, I had 2 graphic novels I was going to crowdfund this year, but with the economic instability we're all looking at, I thought maybe better wait for things to settle down a bit. And
3 years or so.
Hopefully not that long.
Boy.
I mean, like just to draw the nail on that, there's a very likely chance that all the tariff stuff will be ended by October, because now, not that the law matters in this case, but he's using emergency powers to do these tariffs, and they don't apply to how he's using them. So it's unlikely any court but the Supreme Court will support him in this, and it's even unlikely the Supreme Court will support him on this. If the tariffs go away, Americans stop having to pay this stupid tax on goods for no reason whatsoever, and then the economy should stabilize somewhat. So I'm optimistic for next year, everything being better. I'm optimistic.
Fingers crossed.
I'm also a bit of a dreamer, so I'm prepared to be wrong.
One of my artist friends ordered a book from Canada for like $30 and then got hit with a $70 extra fee that he had to pay.
Oh wow!
Yeah, And weirdly enough, in the U.S., you're not supposed to pay duties on books. In Canada, we have to pay duties on books. So when I get a shipment of books from Zoop, it's a big bill. But it's nothing compared to what people have to pay for books shipped from Canada. So that's another benefit of Zoop shipping the books from within the U.S. The largest market for my work is the American market, and no one in the U.S. will have to pay any duties on copies of Idle Hands, because that would be a killer. So
Might just be.
yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
That we're going. You're going through Zoop for this project, and they have a pretty cool business model where they handle all of the business stuff.
Yeah.
For the most part. Tell us about your relationship with Zoop and how that business model has freed you up to be a creator, for lack of a better term.
No, it really does. I mean, I had one previous nightmare Kickstarter experience where a company approached me as soon as the Kickstarter was completed, and they essentially offered me the Zoop deal for a cut of the total package. And I thought, if they're handling all the shipping and all the, they're actually even going to handle the pre-production design stuff of the book. And then they essentially lied, and the deal went sideways. We had to go into a lawsuit over it, and it ate up every dime. And in fact, I went into the hole on it. And every time I thought I recovered, basically you need 10, 12,000 just lying around to be able to do one of these out of pocket. And every time I get close, in fact, there was one publisher I actually reached out to. There were, I guess they're a rival to Print Ninja, which a lot of people use. I think they're still around. I don't want to name their name because there's some good people who were tied with the company, but the person who ran it was a bit of a scam artist. He ran off with the money. I prepaid for an advance on the print book to lock in the price. And then the guy who's running the company went away, and it's like suddenly all my money was gone. So the wonderful thing about this is all the stuff that was supposed to be in that original Kickstarter is going to be in Idle Hands. So instead of getting a 64-page book, everyone's going to get a copy of Idle Hands. So I think it's 60, 70 people who backed the original book. They're all going to get a much, much better book. And so it's finally going to be completed. And initially at one point I was thinking, if it makes enough money, I will, do it separately. And I realized, all the work I did in that book is still pretty damn good. It runs in that monthly drawing theme from The Witches. So it actually works. I can have subchapter on that and honestly make it up to these people who've been patient. I often open the door. You want a refund, you get a refund. And some people took me up on that. I hope I remember who, so I'm not sending them a book, but whatever. But it's it'll be so good to get this demon off my back.
Yeah.
So and the wonderful thing about it is with Zoop, there's no risk of things falling apart on my end. Right. All the art's done in the book. There's some stuff that needs to be colored and recolored for the new edition or for reprinting in this book. But Zoop sits on the money for the printing and distribution. I have a production guy who's going to do all the production for me. So all I have to do is essentially finalize some of the artwork, and then the book's essentially done. And it goes off to the printer in Korea, and then it comes back. And hopefully there's no tariffs on books from Korea. Well, there probably is tariffs on everything. But hopefully everything goes well. And with Zoop, I'm pretty much guaranteed it's going to go well.
Chad?
So when you're drawing, let me go with this question. I noticed when I was reading the description of the campaign that the book includes some private commissions. How does that work? Do you have to get permission from the person to include that?
Well, no. If someone asks me to draw Dark Side, I mean, it's still fair use. I can put that drawing. There's some work where I won't. There was some very personal work that people asked me to draw for them. That won't be in the book. But in terms of private commissions, I mean, when someone pays me to draw a character they like, For example, at the start of COVID, my local food bank wasn't getting donations. Everyone was panic buying for themselves because everyone was panicked.
Sure.
And I noticed that the bin for the food bank was empty at my local grocery store. And so I asked a couple of questions and found out that people just weren't donating. It wasn't that the food bank came and picked up all the food because people needed it. It was that people weren't donating. So I opened up stupidly affordable commissions. It was like $50 for a black and white. I think $100 for a full color piece. Might be 150. And I had my art rep handle it. And the first day, 30 commissions came in. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And at this point, if you guys remember, pretty much all the publishers saying, put pencils down. We don't know what's going to happen. Don't work. And so I didn't think I was going to be working. So I figured, 30 commissions, that'll give me a good month and a half of stuff to draw. Because some of them were paintings, and those usually take a day or two. And I said, let it run. We'll take a look at it again Thursday or Friday. By Thursday, we were over 100. And I said, stop. Because suddenly that was just too much. And it was like, I was hoping to pick up some private commissions, like actual stuff where I'd get to keep the money. So we stopped, and my art rep was like, he was desperate too. So he asked to keep his commission from the food bank sketches. And this is the guy who ended up being a criminal. So I regret letting take the 20% of that. Right. But he handled all the shipping. So it wasn't a full 20%. So, and he said any other time he would have covered the shipping as his contribution. But, and honestly, because work started up for me right away, I had to handle my deadlines and what turned out to be 110 food bank pieces. And so I think it took over a year for me to finish them all. And some people asked for refunds at that time. It's like, I paid $50 for this. You give me that money back. And I was like, some people, $50 is a lot of money. So yeah, we got to give it back to them. Yeah, everything it was basically we swapped in pieces for other people. Other people wanted commissions. So I think my art rep resold them and made a profit on those. Yeah, so the entire food bank project, all 100, I think it's 110, might be 111 pieces, they're going to be in idle hands. So those are technically all private commissions, but all those pieces are going to be in there. And I'm kind of proud what the project was for.
Yeah.
I think it did a good thing. I think I can't remember the exact number. It was somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000. I donated. I ended up with so much money. I ended up not just donating it to one food bank. I broke it up into several food banks across the Toronto area. So I felt I helped a lot of people with that.
Wow, kudos.
Yeah. I mean, food banks and the Hero Initiative. I have two primary charities. It's my local food bank. Every time I do grocery shopping, I usually put $20 or so in the bin. And when I can, like especially if I'm at a convention, I raise money for the Hero Initiative. And awesome. Yeah. So I figured those are good karma. I mean, we come from very, very rich, wealthy nations, and we shouldn't have people going hungry. And I work in an industry built on the backs of people who had no retirement benefits.
Right.
And there's no health benefits for so many of the people working in comics. So, throwing money to the Hero Initiative to help people is a must do. So.
Now you mentioned that you do some painting. Do you have how do you do all your art traditional? Are you working digitally? Are you kind of doing a little bit of both?
I wanted to be Bill Sienkiewicz or Dave McKean or Kent Williams or John J. Muth when really was in art school. I loved painting. I loved Frazetta. None of them are in reach at the moment. So I loved traditional painting. So when I can, I do traditional painting. Right now, the media I'm using primarily is a mixed media of watercolor and acrylic gouache. And so, most of the time, when I say it's a painting, it's completely traditional mixed media. But for comic books, because I find I'm faster coloring things digitally. When I'm doing comic books, almost entirely everything I color is digital. So the work will be traditional pen and ink on board because I'm a very old man, and the sound of ink on board just makes me happy, and the feel of paper, and knowing when I make a mistake and just having that physical like and knowing how to fix it. Whereas in digital, it's Control Z and it doesn't exist. It doesn't feel real to me.
Right.
And I'm also not. I think I'm a good digital painter in a comics context, but I'm not what I think I could color some artists really well, but I'm certainly not anywhere near a top digital colorist for comic books, like a Dave McCaig or a Laura Martin. They got it down. They know what they're doing in terms of a much more limited palette, a much less finicky approach to the work. I'm envious of what someone like Dave McCaig does when he colors such a wide variety of artists, and how he uses his palette is impeccable. And I muddle about and think about things in traditional media and apply it to digital. So I'm a bit of a mess when it comes to color. I'm most happy when I'm doing traditional painting. There's a part of me that would love still to do a traditionally painted comic book. And I don't know that I would ever be able to have because I'm slow too when it comes to painting. I don't know if I'd have the stamina to do what like Bill Sienkiewicz did with Electra Assassin,
Right.
or what John J. Muth did with Moonshadow. But I think I could do like a 48, 64 page graphic novel, fully painted. I have some ideas. I got a series of books I'm going to be doing with Zoop called "We Bring Only Death." It's my Viking horror story. It's going to be like American Horror Story in terms of like it's an anthology. Every book's going to be a standalone one shot. And but the key thing, it's what I consider the Reese's peanut butter cup of genres. I'm mixing Vikings and horror, and they were born to go together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I got one idea I know I could do fully painted. So it would be a fully painted Viking horror book. But that wouldn't be the first one. First one would be just the first story I came up with, which is a little bigger, but that one's going to be pen and ink with digital color. So.
And when you're drawing anatomy and stuff like that, is there a part of the anatomy that you still struggle with, or kind of don't think that you've perfected?
I think anatomy is a skill you lose the less you access source material. Like you see like comic artists who draw in a comic style, and they work in that style exclusively for years and years and years. A certain generic, I don't want to pick any names because drawing comics is hard enough as it is.
Sure.
But there's a certain generic level to the anatomy that takes over, whereas all the bodies kind of look the same. And it's because you're focused purely on drawing what's on the page. I haven't done it really since COVID, but I used to be a regular haunter of life drawing sessions. So I'd be drawing from a live model very often. I've since replaced that with photographs. I always used to study photographs as well, and it keeps my sense of anatomy strong. When I was a younger artist, everything was a struggle. Everything, every bit of anatomy. Is the shoulder right? Do I got the clavicle right? Back muscles were a mystery to me. Hands were always like, oh, I'm drawing hands. Oh no. But if you don't let up, if you keep the studying, and you don't stop taking in new methods. I mean, when I first was an art student, the main anatomy book I had was George Bridgman's Guide to Drawing from Life. All 5 of those old Dover editions. And he had a book of 100 hands. and which was a great primer on how to draw these really powerful, chunky hands. And it's what Frank Frazetta learned how to draw his hands from. But I found that unless I was drawing a very Bridgman-esque hand, it didn't really work, and it hit a limit. And then a friend of mine gave me photocopies, because they were out of print at the time, of Andrew Loomis's book that had a nice little section on drawing hands. And that helped a lot. And what I discovered by the time I encountered my third book that had a good, different approach to drawing hands, seeing how different artists broke down drawing the same subject basically made drawing hands easier for me. Even though I had a much more complex range of options on how to draw hands in my head, it meant I had those options. So it became more difficult for me to find a situation where I couldn't draw a hand. And that came with years and years of just not giving up learning.
Right.
It's a hard thing for me to see an artist who's been doing this for 10, 15 years, who struggles with heads, faces, or hands. Because you have to draw those so often in comic books. And if you're not mindfully drawing them, you're not going to get better at them. And that comes from a certain assumption that study is bad once you're a professional. I've actually had an artist tell me when I was excited to get this new book by a guy named Hampton, beautiful anatomy book. And I said, I'm really excited to get this. I saw it online, I ordered it. And he looks at me and he said, why are you studying? You've got work. And I went, because I want to get work when I'm older and I don't want to be aged out. We've all seen artists who just aren't commercially viable anymore. They draw at a certain level and that got them work for a certain period of time, but styles changed, the market changes, and they weren't, hate to say it, they weren't versatile or skilled enough to change with the times. I think if I can draw cartoony, I can draw hyper realistic. I like my kind of loose, slightly cartoon realism that I do in most of my comic books. But I know if the market shifts and I need to work and they need me to do more retro, like imagey, action dynamic stuff, I can do that because I've done it. Mm-hmm. They need me to move to a more cartoony, say, Joe Mad style. I can move it in that direction because it's fundamentally drawing. And even though the style's different, I've studied from so many different anatomy teachers and artists over the years that it's just applying that learning process to a new approach. I'm 57. I don't want to stop learning. I don't ever want to stop learning.
And that's why you're going to keep working.
I hope so. I mean, shy of going blind or getting hit by a bus. I hope my last day on earth is spent at the drawing table. So, I mean, I'd much rather, the ideal story is to finish the last page of the last comic I'm ever going to draw, turn it over, scan it, send it to my colorist and letterer, and kiss whoever I'm with at that time goodnight, and wake up dead. I mean, hopefully a long time from now, like at least 20 years. Yeah, I'd like another
57 is nothing, man.
Yeah. Well, these days, I mean, I lived a hard life. I mean, I'm already dealing with. I just found out I'm looking forward to knee surgery within the next 5 years.
Oh man,
I have to get a knee replaced, and that comes from. I mean, for years I was grossly overweight, and that's hard on your knees. And people kind of say, that's not good for you, but not good for you to think, well, diabetes, bad heart, those things. But you lose the weight, you're fine. No, that weight that destroys your knees. Yeah. Right. And it's like,
it's still there in places.
Yeah. So it's like I lost about 70 pounds over the last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm keeping it off, which is also good. I want to lose another 10, 15. But because my knee's so messed up, I'm not allowed to go to the gym and lift weights the way I used to do. So I'm going to be taking up swimming. So I'll be I used to be like a big guy, power lifter type body. But now I'm like scrawny and I got loose skin everywhere. Gross.
At least you got that universal health care working for you up there.
Well, I'm hoping that Americans, the people in the United States, get it soon, because you're the only country in the world with a democracy that doesn't. And you got politicians that are lying to you saying that you can't afford it. I mean, my gosh, how much money is being sent to a country committing a genocide every year?
Yeah.
$4 billion every year. This is not including the additional billions of dollars in weapon stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if that was kept domestically, put into healthcare, put into education, put into, my gosh, mental health care, dental care. America can afford it. You just got to stop giving billionaires all their tax cuts.
Yep. Easy.
That's really kind of political.
Relatively easy.
And we got to stop electing idiots, but
Well, okay. Yeah. I think we elect idiots too. Do not confuse us having healthcare with us being a more enlightened society. We narrowly missed getting our own version of Trump up here last election. And the problem with that type of politician is they'll lie all campaign, then do whatever they want to do when they're in power.
Absolutely.
And Americans are so used to being lied to that the lies they were hearing last time sounded like hope, because it was a different batch of lies. And a big part of that, and okay, so I very clearly on the left side of things, but I'm going to bash Democrats right now. Clinton betrayed the American people in a significant way by pivoting the Democrats to big money, corporate money. He abandoned the middle class. He abandoned the working class. So you had two parties who didn't care about the majority of the United States citizens. So I really hope the next election really changes things. I hope the American people get the government at long last they deserve, not the one that they blunder into, because both candidates were terrible. So
to bring it back to comics.
Well,
Hey, no, I know.
I'm too eager to talk politics. So
hey, we do. We are here at Comic Watch are proud of our liberal agendas. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I noticed your logo, so I was like, I'm in the right place. So.
But so what is your view of the comic industry overall these days, and where do you think it's going? Do you think it's positive, negative, maybe? Meh?
Well, I gotta say, and I've talked to a lot of friends about this in the last year. Back in the 90s, I was what me and a few other people referred to as the nexus of comic gossip. So if something happened, I'd usually get a phone call, and this is before the internet. I get a phone call. Oh, did you hear this? So if I hadn't heard about it, I was hearing it. If I had heard it, I'd be calling my guys. And so we knew everything. And so I was one of the first people to know about Marvel buying Heroes World Distributing. And I don't know if you guys remember this, because this is now a long time ago. This is the 90s. I know people in my generation think the 90s was 10 years ago. But
we're not too far behind you, so
yeah.
But and one of my friends likened it to everyone was playing poker. All the publishers were playing poker, and Marvel didn't like that it was losing hands. So suddenly he put a gun on the table and said, "We're going to play into new rules." So everyone's saying, "Well, that's going to hurt Marvel." And my take, and it was the only one who took it to that point, I said, "No, this is going to kill the industry. As we know it, it's going to kill the industry." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, Marvel takes all its business." And at that point, I think there were 35%. It used to be 50, but now 35% because the image was so big. Part of the reason they were so big is there were half a dozen, 16, 17 distributors.
Yeah.
It used to be over 20, but then there was a black and white collapse in the 80s that put a bunch of them out of business. But there was a lot of distributors. And what had happened, because there's so many overlapping distributors, most retailer stores had accounts with more than one distributor. So they'd order X number of books from this distributor, order X number of books from this distributor. Sometimes they'd order the same comics from both because the minimums weren't really a thing, right? And comics were so cheap in the 90s. And the reason why they do this is like, oh, I ordered the latest issue of Thor. I ordered 10 copies. Oh my God, Bill Sienkiewicz did a guest cover for that. I'm just making up history here. Bill Sienkiewicz did a cover and it's sold out because Bill Sienkiewicz is so hot right now. Reach out to my distributor. How many copies you got? You got 2? Well, I'll take them. Call the other distributor to deal with. How many copies you got? You got 5? I'll take them. Right? So every retailer generally, because comics are so cheap, over-ordered a bit, but they'd still sell out.
Mm-hmm.
So the backup was the distributors who would significantly overorder 10, 15%, depending on the book and the company, just to make sure they could fill reorders. So that meant there's a lot of waste, but everyone was making money, so no one really cared. But what Marvel did is they took 30 to 45% of the industry at the time, completely out of all these distributors' pockets. And that put those distributors right out of business.
Sure.
If you can't lose that much of your revenue that quickly and stay in business, it just, the
numbers don't work.
Yeah. And then DC jumped to Diamond. Diamond immediately signed a bunch of exclusives, which killed pretty much all except 1 or 2 distributors who lingered. And those are the ones that were heavily into games and other products that were distributing. So they were able to survive. So suddenly we had 2 distributors, Marvel and Diamond. And that's when I knew things were going to be really bad, because I didn't think Marvel could sustain a distribution model, because they were losing 10 to 15% of pure profit from the overorders on their books. And now they had to cover the cost of their own distributing. So they're thinking, oh, it's direct sales now. We own the company that we're distributing. But now they have to create this distribution chain. They have to hire the people. They have to buy the equipment. They have to lease the equipment. They have to develop the software. They have to get the executives to know how to run this. So there was people to hire from different companies because all the companies were going belly up. But they had to relocate these people. So they had this massive amount of overhead while they were losing 10 to 15% of gross profit, because they didn't really factor in the overorders that just evaporated. And it didn't go well for Marvel. And I think it was well within 2 years that Marvel folded and went to Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had a monopoly. And monopolies are never good for businesses. And anyone who's looked at the history of Diamond Comics knows that wasn't really a particularly good businessman. He had friends who were retailers that he floated way too much money with. Essentially, it was almost like a credit card debt where he allowed them to pay the minimums every month, but it just grew and grew and grew. So when COVID hit him, everyone knew he was in trouble before COVID, but when COVID hit him, he shut things down. Cash crisis. Suddenly there was no cash flow. And that was the beginning end of Diamond. And at that point, I'm saying either we get new distributors, either major distributors moving in and swooping in and just saving the industry, because Diamond's it's a beach to whale at that point. And we had Lunar come in, and now we have Penguin, I believe.
Yeah.
And but they came in too small, too late. So right now, I think we're at a risky time economically in comics. In fact, this month I was supposed to be a small publisher. They wanted me to do covers for a new miniseries, and because I was busy at the time, they approached me. I said, "Well, how about?" Because the book was in production, it wasn't going to be soliciting, I think, until next month anyway. I said, "Well, how about what we do is you give me all 4 covers to do in August, and you pay me for them then." So that means I do them all at once. You have all the artwork to promote. All that stuff's done. August rolls around. They can't do the series anymore because Diamond owes them too much money.
Mm.
And they're not big enough to get picked up by the distributors that are around. So I mean, that hurt me. But I mean, They're looking at a company that might have to declare bankruptcy because Diamond owes them money and is very unlikely to pay even pennies on the dollar. So I think That's the economic picture. I think creatively, comics have never been better. I think if you look across what's successful, you can't just say it's Batman comics are successful. They may be the biggest sellers, but I mean, The Walking Dead's still an economic juggernaut, right? It's a black and white, now it's color, of course, but a black and white horror comic is one of the mainstays of the comic industry, as you know. It's Saga, a vaguely porny science fiction fantasy series, is one of the pillars of the comic industry.
Yeah.
And Invincible, yeah. I mean, I think Invincible's selling a lot better now that the series is out.
For sure, but I work part-time at a comic store on the weekends, and I invariably every weekend, do you guys have Invincible comics? Do you guys have Invincible? It doesn't matter. Like,
it's a great
somebody
series.
is in there looking for Invincible.
Yeah, those big fat. I went and bought those omnibus 3-volume editions.
Yeah,
it was so good to go through and reread everything because I read them as they came out and everything. That was great. I mean, you also think I think possibly the most idiosyncratic creator who went from a mild success to a monster is Mike Mignola.
Yeah.
In Hellboy. I mean, if there's anyone as a role model for what to do as a creative, is not to copy Hellboy, but to do what you love most and make sure that love shows through in your work. You will find an audience. And I think that's the career path I'm on. Yes, I'm doing Second Coming. I love working with Mark, taking Mark's scripts and making them work better as comic books, and then letting Kirk turn it into these beautiful, beautiful pages. He draws superheroes in a way I can't, so it was so easy handing it off to him. And also getting to do, I think the last series I thought were the best covers I ever did. This current set I think is the best covers I've ever done. So I'm really excited to see those solicited so I can start sharing the artwork online. But that's great. But that's not really my wheelhouse. I mean, I really thought I was going to be a Vertigo guy. So adult horror genre stuff is what I'm made for. So I think if I'm true to myself and I do that, my audience will grow because that's a huge audience right there. They'll recognize another true believer, as you were.
Right.
And I think comics is broad enough, its base audience is broad enough that'll sustain me to do what's really true to me as a creator long enough for it to find the audience outside of comics the way Invincible and Walking Dead and Saga have. So I think okay.
Oh, good. Sorry.
No. So I think when I get We Bring Only Death up and running, that's going to be truest to my early influences. It's going to have that essence of Conan and Frank Frazetta and all the horror artists from the horror comic, Bernie Wrights and everything. That's all going to be in there. That's that creative stew that's in my head for forever is going to be coming out. So it's going to be a combination of labor of love and hopefully a labor of my future.
Now, are there any, properties from any of the major companies that you would like to kind of, that are in that wheelhouse that you just talked about, that you would like to kind of have a shot at or, work on?
Well, there's pitches I had in the past. I had a Ghost Rider pitch when I bounced it off of Donnie Cates back when he was working. He got so excited about it. He said, "Let me pitch it to Marvel. I work on it with you." I was thinking, "Well, shit, far worse things than having Donnie Cates wanting to co-write your Ghost Rider pitch." And he came back and said, "Marvel won't do anything that touches on hell." Well, so that kind of rules out most of the stuff I'd want to do at Marvel. Really? And the other pitch I was absolutely convinced was going to land was I wanted to do an Etrigan series called Etrigan's Infernal History of the DC Universe. And it was going to be an entire history of the DC Universe told from the point of view of Etrigan, who at one point was an angel and then became the devil, the demon. And so I was going to basically open up the toy box of all the horror supernatural stuff that happened in the DC universe, contextualize it through the eyes of this for most of his life inexcusably evil creature until he's bound with Jason Blood. And I realized in that story I couldn't just have him telling tales to the reader. I had to have a concurrent storyline. So I was going to pick up on the thread that Alan Moore dropped in his first use of Etrigan, where Jason Blood laments that the longer they're together, the more alike they become. But Jason Blood fears he's becoming more like Etrigan, and Etrigan's becoming like him. So I was going to do a bit of a spy versus spy story where over the years, Jason Blood decides that when Etrigan's in control, he can't stop him from doing what he wants to do. So he starts creating a network through all the different people he encounters of people who can interfere with Etrigan. Fallen angels who may still be angels, magical powers, other demons and devils who are just jealous of Etrigan. Just a bizarre network of people. And at the same time, Etrigan knows the game that's going on, so he develops his own network. And so the storyline looks like Jason Blood is on essentially a suicide mission. And I'm only telling this because I know it'll never happen. Because Dan DiDio was interested, but it never happened. And I don't think DC currently would let me do it. Jason Blood had figured out a way to not only kill Etrigan, but end his suffering. So that would basically, it was a suicide mission for Jason Blood. But during the storyline, Blood finds that Etrigan has an even worse plan that would essentially drag hundreds of thousands of innocent people into hell. And to what information that Jason Blood manages to garner is that this would grant Etrigan freedom from Jason Blood. And so he drops his initial plan to defeat Etrigan, which he does. But at the end of the story, Etrigan reveals that he knew that Jason Blood's plan to kill them both would work unless he came up with a plan that Jason Blood will see as a bigger threat because, Jason Blood's still a good person. He wouldn't want these innocents going to hell. So he knew he'd sacrifice his plan to save these people. So Etrigan actually set it up so his plan would fail, basically because he likes living and he actually likes Jason Blood and doesn't want to see him die. So that was going to be, there was going to be like a Shakespearean little soliloquy at the end of it where he speaks directly to the reader as if from the stage. In fact, my initial idea was to have the final scene where it's like they're in a theater. And then Blood leaves and then you see Etrigan looking dejected and he looks around and looks at the camera and he says, "Oh, you're still here. Well, I guess I should tell you what happened, what game this was." And he explains, he says, "Yes, if you go back and you go through the story again, you'll realize all along, I knew there was no way I could stop Jason's plan. So I came up with this one. So I made him stop his plan." And so I figured I get to retell the whole DC horror history, as well as tell a good mystery espionage type story. And I would have loved to have done that. Those a Ghost Rider set in Hell story and Etrigan telling the infernal history of the DC universe. Those are the two other people's properties I would have loved to have done. So now I think I'm going to be making my own toys.
Play in your own toy box, man.
Yeah, I don't need. It's better when I don't have to ask people permission.
Yeah.
Although if Mike Mignola and I have talked about it occasionally, he's got a very specific range of artists he likes working with, and I totally appreciate it because I love everything he does. But someday he's going to let me draw something with Hellboy. I don't care if I write it. I just want to draw Hellboy at some point. That's it. So that's the last of other people's toys I want to play with. Because otherwise, if I want to draw Batman, I can draw Batman for myself, or I can do it as a commission.
Yeah.
If someone wants me to draw Emma Frost, I draw Emma Frost. So there's not another toy that I can't draw to scratch an itch. In fact, I have commission because those covers didn't happen. I have my commissions open right now. So I open, it's a limited 20% off sale where basically you have to pick from a selected range of characters I just love drawing.
Is one of them Hellboy?
Yeah, it's Hellboy. It's
Yes.
It's Ghost Rider, Swamp Thing, Hellboy, Darkseid, The Thing. There might be another one in there. basically they're all the chunky Kirby guys in a burning skull.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's like, yeah, you just go to my art site, you pick sketch cover, which is 150 versus 200 for the 9x12, and you just send a note saying I want a 9x12 with one of these characters, and you get 25% off. So that's fun.
Talking to Jesus.
Well, no, Jesus is not on the list, so
Go figure.
I could draw a crucified Swamp Thing. That's kind of famous.
There we go. Thank you, Rick Feach.
Rick Veitch, yeah. Did they ever? I heard that there was at one point they were thinking of reprinting it, allowing it to be completed, but I don't think it.
I don't think that ever got past the concept stage.
Damn. I would have loved to see, because he wrote a good run on Swamp Thing. I was terrified I was going to hate Swamp Thing when Alan Moore left. I think Rick Veitch did a great run on Swamp Thing. So.
It's not exactly easy to follow Alan Moore on anything.
No. I think the smartest thing DC ever did is when they did the Hellblazer series, they didn't give it to Alan Moore.
Right.
Having
Jamie Delano.
I was gonna say John Ridgway, but he was the artist. Having Jamie Delano, who's a great writer, but he has a different enough creative voice that he prepared people for a different take in DC's horror audience. And I mean, that's where we got Vertigo from. I mean, the fact that Hellblazer and Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol, all these different disparate adult comics voices, that was such a golden time in comics.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. I didn't just because of when I was born, I didn't just get into all that until the 90s, but still.
Yeah. In fact, that's how I got involved with Second Coming.
Really?
Yeah, I had just done covers for Tim Seeley's Imaginary Fiends from Vertigo. So I got to take a bucket list item. I wanted to do work for Vertigo, which eluded me through the 90s. I'd go show my work at Vertigo, and they go, "Oh, your stuff's nice, but yeah, maybe you should work at Marvel." I was like, "Oh," and I go to Marvel, and they give me work, right? And it's so getting to do covers for Vertigo was great. And then right after that, the editor says, "Hey, would you like to work on the next Preacher?" And I went, "How could I say no to that?"
Right. What an ask.
Yeah. And Second Coming is definitely not Preacher.
No.
But it was a great learning experience as an artist. And we ended up, and Vertigo essentially was gone by the time Second Coming launched. So
they say it's coming back, but I've yet to see any evidence.
They've been talking about it coming back for years now.
Yeah. It was supposed to happen this year. I mean, maybe this fall. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're definitely poorer without Vertigo.
Well, I love the idea of Vertigo coming back. I'd love it if, I mean, one of the major voices for Vertigo will not work in comics again. Actually, more than one. But probably the most recent major voice in Vertigo will not work in comics again. No one's stupid enough to hire him. So I don't know what Vertigo coming back has to offer more than nostalgia at this point, because every other publisher is essentially Vertigo.
Yeah.
I mean, especially Image. Like if you look at the majority of Image's output, I mean, sure, they still do some superhero stuff, but almost everything they do is aimed at an older audience of more mature readers. Not necessarily mature readers up across the board, but the content is a lot more elevated.
Yeah.
It's not telling stories for 12-year-olds, but adding stuff for the 25-year-old who happens to read it as well. They're writing for an audience in their 20s. So I don't know if under the current paradigm, if Vertigo can offer the type of contract that would actually lure people back.
Yeah, they would have to. I mean, from a creative perspective, they would have to be. They would have to give creator rights, because if you're not going to give creator rights, then I mean, why wouldn't you take your project elsewhere, right? boom or
Exactly.
to image.
Well,
Yeah. And I don't know if corporate DC is would do that.
Well, yeah, you'd have to have a Paul Levitz there, and he's not been there for a long time, who'd be willing to give creators that much leeway. I mean,
Yeah.
Paul Levitz, love him or hate him, and there's arguments for both sides. He understood the importance of creators in a way that I think contemporary upper management, I think Marie Javins understands what's going on.
Yeah,
But
for
I think
sure.
the people that make the decisions above her pay grade don't. And in fact, Tim Seeley has definitely wanted to do more Imaginary Fiends. It for a Vertigo book at the time, it did really, really well, but they got put aside for the Sandman Universe relaunch. And it's been held by DC because they own the rights because of the new contracts they had ever since. I mean, I think under the old contracts, Tim would have it back, and we probably would have done another series. I would have gladly done more Imaginary Fiends covers, especially if I believe his first name was Tom. If Tom was up to drawing it again, because he was an excellent artist.
Yeah. Well, I guess the future remains unwritten, but we shall see where it comes to Vertigo.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts on Idle Hands or a final pitch that you'd like to put out there for folks?
Well, first there's the economic pitch. It's a 300-page hardcover, 8.5 by 11 hardcover art book for $65. You can't beat that value. I mean, if you look at the omnibuses, the comics omnibuses you get, I think they're routinely $150. So, I mean, so it's a hell of a lot of what I think is pretty good art for a great bargain. There's also, I think, some really, really beautiful art you can actually get as additional rewards, all the devil names and witches that are up there now. But it's also, I think the additional features where I'm actually communicating with the reader about the work, how I do the work. I think it's going to be a good mentorship for young artists who want to find their own path and see the mistakes that someone else has made, or someone who actually seen the mistakes that other people have made and learned from them. There's going to be a lot of communicating about the growth process as an artist and a professional going through the years. And even now, even at this advanced age, I will still let a directive from a client get in the way of doing the work I know I should be doing. And hopefully I can reach people at a young enough age and talk them through this to understand how to address this. So I think it's a really pretty book, and I think it's going to be a valuable resource for other artists. And it's a bargain, baby.
And funded.
With that.
Yeah. So I got a 3-pronged approach.
Chad, do you have any final questions for Richard?
No. Yeah. Do you have any like conventions planned, or are you just kind of playing it close to home?
I would rather not end up in Alligator Alcatraz. So
Fair.
Yeah, I was warned as soon as he was elected that it's very likely that he would be seizing people who ever were politically vocal about him before. And I did some drawings of him that got some of his fans very upset. Yeah, so it's like, for my own safety, I'm staying home.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So again, that's also another reason why it's good that online commissions are a thing, because I got friends in the United States who want my work, and they can't get it unless they order a commission online.
And where can they go?
It's I got a big cartel. It's just you Google Richard Pace Big Cartel and you'll find my website, and it has a whole bunch of artwork that's already up there. I haven't updated for a while. There's much more other art I should put up there. But again, if you want to take advantage, God, I feel like I'm shilling now, but I'm already here shilling for my art book. So if you go there, just go to commissions. You select the sketch cover choice, and if you want like one of the characters I mentioned, you just write a note 9 by 12, one of this character, and you save 25%. So it's a bargain too. My God, nothing but bargains tonight.
Bargain, 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 baby.
Yeah.
So, well, Richard Pace, thank you so much for stopping by and talking with us tonight. We actually ran a little over our normal time, but that's okay because it was good conversation.
Well, all right. I do tend to babble.
That's okay. So, the book is Idle Hands, The Art of Richard Pace. You can fund it now on Zoop. And I highly suggest you do so because, like the man himself says, it is a fantastic bargain.
And it's actually funded. So backing it means you're guaranteed to get a book.
There you go. So there you go. Well, no reason not to.
Yeah, I should have said that.
Chad, who do we have next week?
We will be talking with another artist who is, I don't know if the Kickstarter's begun yet, but artist Mike Del Mundo will be joining us to
Mike
talk
Del
about
Mundo.
Another
Love
Canadian.
him. Love his work. We can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard Pace, for hanging out with us tonight, and thank you all for listening. These podcasts are a labor of love in a world that seems to be short on it. Get out there, spread some love and joy in the world, and support local art, support local businesses, support your local comic book store, for crying out loud. Just get out there and don't be a dick. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.